So in this video, we're going to take a look at what an enzyme is and how it functions. So let's talk really fast about a chemical reaction, because in order for us to talk about enzymes, we need to remember what a chemical reaction is. So don't forget, chemical reactions occur when there's changes in the bonds that hold the atoms together. They can rearrange themselves and they're going to produce a new substance or new substances. They can either release or absorb energy. So an example we can look at is from photosynthesis, which we've looked at before. So with photosynthesis, you start off with carbon dioxide and water. Then it goes through what we call the chemical reaction, which is where the atoms and the bonds are changed. They then rearrange themselves to form new things. So in the end, you end up forming two new substances in this case, which would be glucose and oxygen. This is a chemical reaction. New substances are formed in the end. So enzymes actually help chemical reactions occur. So we're going to take a look now at what these enzymes are. So we're looking at enzymes. Enzymes are proteins. Remember, proteins are a type of biomolecule that we've talked about. Proteins are made of long chains of amino acids. So enzymes are biological catalysts, okay? So bio means life, so these are things that occur within living organisms. So the job of any catalyst is going to be to speed up the rate of reaction. So that means the enzymes will also, because they're a type of catalyst, they're going to speed up the rate of the reaction, but this is what takes place in cells, in those living things that we talked about. So let's look at this chart that we have right here so we can kind of look a little closer as to what it is that I am referring to when I talk about speeding up these reactions. So when we're looking at the y-axis, we have energy increases, and on our x-axis, we have the reaction taking place. So we always start with reactants, and obviously we end with products. Now our yellow line, this is the reaction with the enzyme. So if we look at it carefully, it starts right here at the reactants, and as it goes up, it uses so much energy, and eventually it forms those new products, those new substances at the end. When we look at the pink line, which is reaction without the enzyme, start in the same place, but what happens to the energy? This time, the chemical reaction has to use much more energy because it doesn't have the enzyme to help them out right there. So enzymes actually help to reduce the activation energy here so that this chemical reaction can take place. So this is what an enzyme can do for a chemical reaction. So now let's look specifically at the reactants of the chemical reaction. When we're talking about enzymes, these are also known as substrates. Okay, so that's the word we're going to start using. So instead of saying reactants when we're referring to enzymes, we're going to use the word substrate. Okay, so now reactants do need a place to react chemically. All right, again, this place does reduce the amount of energy needed for the chemical reaction to take place. Enzymes will provide this place for those reactants. Again, the reactants are known as substrates, and substrates fit into specific enzymes like a lock and a key, which is why I have this picture right here. Okay, so when we're talking about fitting in like a lock and a key, you know that if you have a specific key, it's only going to open up a certain lock. It's not going to open up every single lock out there in the world. It's specifically made for a certain one. That's how enzymes and substrates work. A specific substrate fits with a specific enzyme. It doesn't fit with all enzymes. So that's why we need to make sure that they're a perfect fit in order for this chemical reaction to take place the way we plan for it to take place with the use of the enzyme. Alright, so let's take a look at this picture right here that we have. So we start off with an enzyme on the left side. Now the spot right here where the substrate will fit into, that is known as the active site. That's the part that's going to give the energy to the substrate, which are the reactants, so they can chemically react and then produce those new substances at the end. Once the substrate fits into the enzyme, this now is known as the enzyme substrate complex. Okay, the enzyme substrate complex occurs when those two fit in together. So as you can see right here, they're a perfect fit, like a puzzle piece, or like we showed in the previous section of the video, the lock and the key. They're just a perfect fit. So they're able to react chemically with the help of this enzyme, speed up the chemical reaction rate by reducing the activation energy, and at the end, what happens? It forms products, and the products are then released from this enzyme and then do what they have to do after that. So in this case, this one made two separate products. Alright, so now let's take a look at something we call denaturing. So again, don't forget, enzymes are proteins. Now, if the temperature is too high, the enzyme does become denatured, which means it changes shape. So because we know that everything has to fit perfectly like a puzzle piece or like a lock and a key, if the shape is no longer the same, well, the enzyme is not going to function the way it's supposed to function. So this is the same example from the previous page. We have the exact same enzyme right here, same shape as we had in the previous one, but when there is an increase in the temperature, so the temperature is too high, look what happens to the enzyme. It now has a different shape. So instead of having the triangle right there and then kind of like a little U shape there, it now has two square shapes right there. The substrate, however, which are the reactants, those don't change shape, so they no longer fit though. This is what happens when an enzyme is what we call denatured. So if the substrate can no longer fit in there, it can no longer use the help of the enzyme to react chemically the way we planned for it to do.